Hello, everybody. My name's Maddie, and I'm an implementation specialist here at Lightspeed. I'll be going through today's Retail R Series front-end webinar with you all. Now, hopefully, you're able to hear me and you can see my screen okay, but if you are having some difficulties, those usually just can be fixed by hopping out of the webinar platform and then popping back in. If those problems do seem to persist, though, you can give my team a call at one of the numbers on the screen, and they'll be able to give you a hand. Now we are waiting on just a couple more people before we get started. So now is a great time to get a coffee, get a snack, do whatever you want to do before we settle in for the next hour. I'll be right back in about 2 minutes, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, it looks like most of us are here, so we're going to go ahead and get started. For anyone just joining us now, hi, my name is Maddie, and I'm an implementation specialist here at Lightspeed. I'll be going through today's Retail R Series front-end webinar with you all. And now hopefully you're able to hear me and you can see my screen okay, but if you are having some difficulties, those usually just can be fixed by hopping out of the webinar platform and then popping back in. If those problems do seem to persist, though, you can give my team a call at one of the numbers on the screen, and they'll be able to give you a hand. Now, this is just a little bit of backstory about me, so you can put a face to the name. So as I said, my name's Maddie. I've worked in the retail/customer service industry for about 8 years now. I currently onboard retail, e-com, and loyalty here at Lightspeed. Pre-pandemic, concerts were my absolute most favorite activity, so I'm very excited to be getting back into those, and I'm a very big Harry Styles fan. This is an overview of the onboarding journey that you'll be going through with our R Series product. So hopefully at this point, you've either had a chance to attend the live backend webinar or at least watch the recording. For today, we're going to move into all things front end. So we're going to talk about sales, refunds, and a little bit of inventory management, all of those day-to-day things that you'll need to do. After that, you'll also have the option of attending a one-on-one consultation with an implementation specialist. Now, that one-on-one consultation is a great time to go through any additional questions that might have popped up or any specific workflows you had. And then after that, ideally, you'll be able to go live and launch, and then we'll focus on any additional onboardings for products you might have, like e-com, analytics, or loyalty. Now, we are going to be recording today's webinar, so when we're all finished, you will receive a follow-up email with a link to the recording. Now, you're more than welcome to rewatch that yourself if there was anything you wanted to revisit, but you can also pass it along to anyone else who didn't have the chance to attend today. This is going to be a breakdown of our agenda for today, and it is a pretty large agenda. We do have quite a bit to cover. So we're going to start off with some point of sale essentials on both the desktop and the iPad side. So we'll talk about how to download and log into the iPad app. We'll talk about how to open your register, how to clock in and out, how to do sales, refunds, and exchanges, and then we'll make sure everyone's comfortable closing the register as well. After that, we'll talk about some more advanced workflows, and we'll go through special orders and layaways, how to do a purchase order, and how to do a vendor return as well. Now, we are going to have some time at the very end of our session for Q&A. So but with that being said, if there are any questions that do pop up, please feel free to type them into the questions box, and I'll do my best to get to them as I see them. If I don't get to your question right away, I'll circle back to it in the Q&A, and if I still don't get to it there, I will send you an email follow-up with some additional information that you'll be able to take a look at. Now that is going to be it for all of our housekeeping, so we are going to go ahead and jump right into things. Before we do, though, I do have a really quick poll I'm going to run, just seeing if you're planning on using an iPad or a computer for your point of sale. Just gives me an idea as to where everybody's at. So I'm going to launch that poll now, if you don't mind taking just a quick second to answer for me. Awesome. Probably the speediest group I have had this week, so that's awesome. We're going to go ahead and close out that poll, and it does look like we have some people planning on using both. Looks like most people are planning on using an iPad, but we do have some computer users as well. So what I'm going to do is we're going to start out with the iPad side of things. So I'm going to get my little iPad screen share going here, and then we will go ahead and get started. Okay. So starting out on our iPad screen, first things first, we have to download the Lightspeed app to be able to use it. So we're going to go ahead and pop into our app store here. I'm going to search up Lightspeed Retail POS. And up on our top line of options there, we want the one on the top right. So the one that says Lightspeed Retail POS R, the black background with the white logo. This is going to be the version that you'll want to make sure you download. Once you've downloaded it, you are good to go and you can actually access the system. So we are going to go ahead and log in. Now, if you've never had a chance to log into the system before, when you signed up for Lightspeed, your account executive should have sent you an email that includes your credentials to log in. Typically is going to be the email you signed up with, and then the password is usually something very generic, like Lightspeed1 or Lightspeed123. If that password doesn't work, or if you wanted to reset it right off the bat, you do have a Recover Password button in the top right that you can use to reset your password. Awesome. So now that we are all logged in, this is going to be our back office here in our point of sale screen. The very first thing that I wanted to mention is on the bottom of the page, we have 3 tabs. On the bottom left, we have a tab that currently has my name. So this is going to be the name of whoever is currently logged into the system, the profile tab. And this is where you're able to do all of your day-to-day things. So your sales, opening, closing the register, clocking in and out, all of that good stuff. In the bottom middle, we do have a little tab for sales. This is going to give us an overview of any sales that we have kind of on the go or any sales that have been completed. And then over in the bottom right, we do have a manager tab. Now the name of this tab is a little bit misleading because everyone who has access to your Lightspeed account is going to have access to this manager tab. With that being said, this is still going to be restricted by their usual permissions. So if you have an employee who doesn't have access to, say, settings or inventory, they're not going to have access to those things on this screen, provided that they're logged into their account. We're going to go ahead and pop back to the bottom left little profile tab though. And first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and open up our register. So we're going to use that big blue open register button in the middle of the page. And this is where we can type in the float that we're starting out for the day. Now we can either go through and type in the quantities of all of the bills and coins that we're starting our day with, or down near the bottom of the page, we do have a section that says float amount. In here, we can just type in the total amount we're starting our day with if we know exactly what it is. Once we've typed that in, we're going to hit done in the top right corner. And now I don't have a printer hooked up, so this isn't going to print anything off for me. But assuming you did, you could print off a little receipt paper just confirming what you started the day with and the time the register was opened at. Staying on that middle line of options there, we have a button to manually add an amount to our cash register. We also have a button to manually remove an amount from our cash register. And then we have a close register button. For the add amount button, if we hit that, this just takes us to a page where we can record what money we're going to be adding to the till. Now this is going to be separate from your sales. This would be maybe a couple weeks ago, you took some money out of the till to go grab something, and you're just now getting a chance to replace that money. This is where you'd want to record that you're putting that money back in the till. So when you go to close at the end of the night, everything is even and everything is all accounted for. Same thing for the remove amount button, but it works the opposite way. If you need to take money out of your till, this is where you can record that you're doing that. So when you go to close, everything matches up. Popping up to our top line of options there, we do have a button for our time clock. Now, if we're wanting to track the hours that our employees are working, you'll definitely want to make sure you utilize this button. So opening this option, this is where our employees can type in their PINs to be able to clock in and out. Now the PIN is something that's set up within your settings in the employee profile, but once that's been set up, this is how they'll access the time clock going forward. So if I pop in my PIN, that's going to clock me out because I was currently clocked in. We're going to go ahead and type in our PIN again, and that is going to clock me in. Up in the top right corner, we do have a little done button. So we're going to hit that to get out of this screen. And let's go ahead and jump into a brand new sale. We're going to use our big blue new sale button kind of over on the top right side there. And this is going to be our sales screen. Now, starting off kind of on the top line, we have three little buttons just off the center on our top line of options there. Starting off on the left with the little magnifying glass, this is how we're able to add items to our transaction. Now, if all of our items have little price tags on them and little barcodes, what we can do is we can pop our cursor in the search field, and then we could scan in our item to find the one that we want to add to our transaction. You also have the option to type in the description or the SKU to be able to manually search for that item as well. Once you found an item that you want to add to the transaction, we'll go ahead and say that we want to add that item to the sale. And then we have our line item populating on the transaction. Now we're going to come back to this line item, and we're going to focus on those three little buttons that were just on the top line off the center again there. Moving over one, we do have a little tiny plus button. And this is where we can make some modifications to this transaction as a whole. So in here, we could create a brand new item kind of during the sale. So maybe a customer came in and brought in an item or brought up an item that for whatever reason we haven't entered into the system yet. This is where we could create that item on the fly. We also have an option if we're going to be selling a gift card. And then we also have a button for a miscellaneous charge. Maybe a customer brings up an item that we know is the very, very last one. We're not too concerned with actually adding this item into our inventory, and we just want to record the dollar amount. That's where the miscellaneous charge could come into play. And then our final button up on our top line there is a little circle that kind of has 3 dots in it. This is where we can make some modifications to the transaction again as a whole. So in here, we could apply a discount to the entire transaction. We could apply an employee to the entire transaction. So maybe I'm bringing this through for a colleague and I want to make sure that they get credit for the sales they're helping out with. I could modify the tax for this whole transaction, and then I can also cancel out the sale. Moving into our actual line item, starting off on the left side, we do have our little quantity there. This is where we can increase or decrease the quantity if we wanted to. We have our item description, we have our item price, and then all the way over on the right side, we have another one of those little circles with the 3 dots in it. This is where we can make modifications to just this particular item. So in here, we can modify the price for just this item. So maybe the customer brought it up and it was priced wrong. It's only going to change the price for this transaction. It doesn't change the price for the item going forward. We can modify our quantity. We can give this one specific item a discount. We can give this item to a specific employee, give that employee credit for this item. We can modify our taxes. And then we also have a little spot for any notes. Do keep in mind that any notes you input here are going to print out on the receipt, so customers will see them. Then at the very bottom, we do have an option to completely remove this item from our sale. I'm going to hit the cancel button in the top left there since we're not making any changes. Moving down to the bottom left, we do have 2 little buttons for receipt notes and internal notes. So in there, this is where, again, we can add in additional notes for our item. So if we hit our receipt notes button, this gives us a spot where we can add in more notes. But again, do keep in mind that anything that's popped in here, customers will see. Internal notes, on the other hand, customers will not see. This is just going to stay with the sale in the database. So you could always go back and review those internal notes, but it will not print out on the receipt for customers to see. In the very bottom left corner, we do have the option to add a customer to our transaction as well. You can do this in whatever order. This could be the first thing you do when you open up the sale, or it could be your last step before having the customer pay. But we're going to go ahead and hit the Add Customer button. Now, on the left-hand side of the page, we do have our little database where we can search from. If this customer has been added in before, we can search for them with a first name, last name, email, or phone number. If this customer has never been added in before, on that left-hand side, we do have a little plus button up at the top of the page. The very faint blue plus button. I'm not sure if you guys can see it super well. But this is where we can add in that customer to our database going forward. Now, it's totally up to you what customer information you want to take. I typically say a first name and a last name is pretty standard and is kind of the bare minimum, but it's usually a good idea to take another piece of information that's a little bit more unique, like an email or a phone number. Just in the event that you do have some customers with the same name, you can easily identify who is who. From here, we're going to hit the Save button in the top right corner, adds that customer to our database, and also adds them to our transaction in the bottom left. From here, if we've built out our whole sale, time for the customer to pay. So moving over to the right-hand side of the page on the bottom, we have a couple different payment options. If the customer is going to pay right away with cash, we can hit the little cash tab. Then we can record how much the customer is going to give us. And Lightspeed will let us know if the customer still owes us a little bit more or if we owe the customer some change. I'm going to hit cancel in the top left though, and we're going to hit the more payments button in the bottom right. This is where you'll see a full list of all of the other payment options that you have available to you. So in this screen as well, this is where we could do a split payment. So maybe my customer has decided they want to do part cash. So we'll tap the little cash tab. And let's say they're going to give us $50 cash. Then from here, our balance over kind of on the right-hand side near the bottom, we do have a line that says our balance is $22.75. So maybe my customer is going to pay the remainder of that with their debit card. We'll go ahead and hit the debit card option. Now, I don't have a payment terminal hooked up, so this isn't actually going to do anything, but assuming you did have some integrated payments going on, this would send the amount to the payment terminal, and it would then prompt the customer to, insert, swipe, tap their card, whatever they're going to do. In my case, I'm just going to go ahead and say done. Our balance is now $0. Everything is even up, and we're going to go ahead and finish out our sale in the bottom right. From here, you have a couple different options of what you can do with your receipts. So you could go ahead and print off a standard receipt. You could email it to the customer instead if they want to go paperless. And then you also have the option to print out a gift receipt without any prices. Now from here, let's say that customer comes back in and they didn't love the items. They're thinking that they either want to do a full refund or maybe they want to exchange them. To pull up that previous transaction, we're going to hop into the Sales tab in the bottom middle of the page there. And from here, if you see that sale on this page, great, you don't have a ton of searching to do. But you might notice kind of up on our top line of options again, just off the center, we have a faint blue little magnifying glass. If I hit that magnifying glass, this just pulls up a little search bar for me. There's a couple ways that I can find that previous transaction. I could search for it with our customer name. I could search for the actual sale number, or if the customer has the receipt in front of them, there is a little barcode that's going to print out at the bottom of the receipt. We could scan that in here as well, and it would pull up the correct transaction for us. In our case, though, we're just going to go ahead and use that top option that's already highlighted for us. And on the right-hand side of the page, this just gives us a little bit of a breakdown for that previous transaction. We can see what the total was, the time it was completed, and what register it was completed at. We can see our customer information, the actual items they purchased. If we had entered in any notes, receipt notes, or internal notes, we have a refund tab, and then we can also reprint their receipt. We're going to go ahead and use the little refund tab, second from the bottom there. From here, if the customer had purchased multiple items, we would just select the items that they're going to be bringing back. And then up in the top right corner, we have a blue refund button that we're going to hit. This is going to bring us back to our sales screen. You'll notice it looks very similar to what we were looking at before. Only difference really being that our line item now is in the negative. So in this case, if the customer was just doing a straight refund, they didn't want to get anything else instead, we would go straight into our big payments tab in the bottom right-hand corner. And then we would record how the customer is going to be getting their money back. If you have a customer name attached to the sale, you will see a credit account option show up there. So on our second line of options on the left-hand side, we have a credit account option. This would basically put it on that customer's in-store account so they could use this money the next time they come in to purchase something. But you're only going to see that option if you have a customer name attached to the sale, because Lightspeed has to know who that money is being put aside for. Maybe our customer has decided that they want to do an exchange instead. So I'm going to hit the little back button up on the top left to get us back to our sales screen. And all we would do from here is use our little magnifying glass on our very top line there to search for the items the customer wants to get instead. So from here, maybe we're going to add these ones. And let's do these ones. So from here, once we've added in the items the customer wants to purchase instead, our total down at the bottom is going to tell us if we still owe the customer some money, if it's even up, or if the customer actually owes us some money. So in this case, the customer is spending a little bit more than they did the first time. So we're going to go ahead and pop into our payments tab in the bottom right. We would record how the customer is going to pay for that remainder. And then we're going to go ahead and finish out our sale in the bottom left-hand corner or bottom right-hand corner there. And we have the same options for our receipts. Beautiful. So that's going to be it for the iPad portion of things. So I'm going to get rid of my iPad screen, and then we'll kind of run through all of that really quickly again on the computer. So give me 2 seconds here to get rid of my little iPad screen. Get that out of the way. Okay, beautiful. So we will get started on kind of the computer. As I said, we'll run through all of that again on the computer, just in case anyone here is set on using the computer. You'll kind of know how to do everything as well. So I'm actually just going to refresh the page here. I'm going to go ahead and start using Register 1 because it's already open and it opens in the same way that the register would on the iPad. So we're going to continue using Register 1. Now from here, this is typically going to pop you into a sales screen that looks like this. And we're going to go ahead and start directly with a new sale on our top line of options there. On here, we have all of the same information we saw on the iPad, just looks a little bit different. If you're using an iPad and you like this screen view better, you do have access to this specific sales screen through the Manager tab of the iPad as well. So starting off at the top of the page, we can add in our customers. If this is a customer we have added to the database before, of course, we can search through for them with a first name, last name, email, or phone number. If they're brand new, we can use the plus new button on our top line of options here to add them to our database for the first time. Once we've added our customer, we'll move down a line here, and this is where we can actually add our items to the transaction. So again, if your items have barcodes or stickers on them, you can go ahead and scan them in. You can also type them in looking for the description or manually type in the SKU. Or if we hit our little search button, this just takes us to a list of everything in our inventory. And from here, we can choose what we want to add to the transaction. Staying on that second line of options, we do have the plus new button if we wanted to manually create a brand new item on this transaction. We do have our miscellaneous charge buttons. If we're just concerned with the dollar amount, we can use that. If you're using the service module, you will see a labor charge here. So if you needed to add labor to this transaction. And then we also have a gift card button if we're planning on selling a gift card. Moving down to our line item, we have our item description, we have the selling price, our quantity, and then just some tax information. If I click on the name of this item here, so where it says Moisture Surge Hydrator, if I click on this item, it populates with a little bit more information for me. So on the left-hand side, this is where we could add in any notes we have about the item, but do remember they print out on the receipt. We can modify the quantity the customer is purchasing. We can override the price for just this transaction. We can modify the discount if we want to give the customer a discount on this item, modifying our tax information, changing the employee that's assigned to the item, and then we also have the option of moving our items to a layaway or to a special order. Now we're going to put a pin in this one for now, and we're going to come back to these in just a couple minutes. But do keep in mind that if you make any changes within this screen here, do just use the save button in the bottom right to make sure that those changes stick and they actually lock in. Underneath our line items, we have a couple buttons here that are going to affect the entire transaction. So if we needed to put everything on a layaway or put everything on a special order, if we wanted to apply an employee for the entire transaction or apply a discount, same thing with setting our tax, and the Show Notes tab just gives us the same option we saw before for entering in receipt notes or internal notes. Now from here, if the customer is ready to pay, we're going to go ahead and hit our big green payment button. My payment screen is going to look a little bit different from yours if you're planning on using integrated payments like Lightspeed payments. For example, instead of seeing debit and credit broken down kind of near the bottom here, what you would see instead is up at the very top of the page, you would have a tab that says debit/credit. You would hit that, and then it's going to send the amount to the payment terminal and prompt them to do their thing. Mine just looks like this because I don't have a terminal hooked up and I have to record everything manually. Now from here, if the customer has decided they're going to give us the entire balance in kind of one tender, we can use the little max button beside one of our payment options here, and it automatically populates with the total for us. Maybe my customer has decided they're going to give us $50 in cash though. Underneath that, Lightspeed's going to let us know what the change is that we owe that customer. Or maybe, same as what we talked about before, they're going to do a split payment. Maybe they're going to give us $20 cash. We now have our balance populating over on the right-hand side of the page here, and we could record how the customer is going to be paying that remainder. From here, we'll use our green Finish Sale button on the right-hand side of the page. And we have, oh, my receipts. Your receipts will not look like this. I was playing around with my receipt templates here, so mine look a little bit funky. But you are going to have the same options we saw before in terms of printing out your receipts. So you have a tab to print out just the regular receipt. You could print off a gift receipt, email it to a customer, or start a completely brand new transaction. Now I'm actually going to modify this template really quick here to make it look like the way it should, or make it look like the default version. So I'm going to pop into my settings really quick on the left-hand side of the page here. Scrolling down, I'm going to pop into my Print Templates module, which you may or may not have enabled on your account. Typically, this is something our support team has to turn on for you because there's something you want to modify on the receipt or the label template. I am actually just going to completely remove the sale one, and we will go back to our sales screen, and we will continue on from there. That is always something we can talk about in a one-on-one as well, if you think that you may need to do some modifying of the template. Now from here, let's go ahead and talk refunds. So maybe that same customer comes in, didn't love the items, and they're thinking they either want to completely return them or do an exchange. We have a couple different ways that we can pull up the previous transaction. Now, with the receipt that prints out, this is what it should look like by default. There is going to be a barcode at the very bottom of the receipt here. If the customer comes in with the receipt, all you would have to do is start a brand new transaction, and you can scan that barcode within the sales screen. At that point, it's going to pull up all of the information you need to be able to complete the refund. You also have the option of just copying the ticket number, so the little blue number that I've highlighted up here, kind of on the top left. You can use that instead of scanning in the barcode. Both of them work. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pop back into my sales tab, and we'll start a brand new sale. I am just going to paste that ticket number in my item field here, or if I had a scanner, I could scan the receipt in that field. We're going to search that up, and it has now added our customer Emma to the transaction. It's given us a little refund tab, and under that refund tab, we have that previous transaction. This would be a list of all of the items the customer purchased. Now we're going to come back to this refund section in just a minute, but there are a couple other ways we could pull up this previous transaction that I wanted to go through, depending on the situation. So maybe the customer doesn't have the physical receipt, but maybe we had their customer information. What we can do is we can pop into our customers tab on the left-hand side of the page here, popping up to the customers button on our top line of options. We'd search through our customer database here to find the correct customer. And then on the left-hand side of the page, we do have a little submenu, and we have a tab for sales. If we open up the sales tab, this brings us to a list of anything that customer has ever purchased in our store. And then from here, we would find the transaction that we're looking for. So in our case, we're looking at transaction ID 907. So all we would do from here is hit 907. We have a refund tab up on our top line of options here. And if we hit that refund button, just brings us back to the sale, and it's what we were looking at before with the customer name attached, a list of all the items they've purchased, and from there, we can choose what they're going to be bringing back. You also have an option to look through your reports to try and find a specific transaction. So if we go into our reports tab on the left-hand side of the page, I typically just take a look at the totals report, so your first option on the left-hand side here. This is going to be a list of all of the transactions you've completed. Now, very first thing up on the top left is you could change your date range. Maybe the customer doesn't know exactly when they came in. Maybe they never gave you a name. You could go in and maybe they said, I came in at some point during June. Not 100% sure, but it was sometime during June. You can modify your little date range, go ahead and search, and then this would bring up a list of any transactions done in that time frame, and you could try and find the one that you're looking for. This one may be a little more difficult if the customer did not give you their information and they don't necessarily have a super good idea as to when they came in. Now, maybe you have a customer come in who wants to return something and they do not have a receipt, they were never added into the database, and they have no idea when they purchased the item. We can do something called an ad hoc refund, or it's basically a refund that's not coming from a reference point, like the customer profile or from a receipt. In that case, what we're going to do is we're going to hit our sales tab on the top left there. If you have an open sale, you may see a little refund tab here. This is where you can just add a refund to the existing sale. But a lot of the times, if you don't have an open sale, you're not going to see that button pop up. So what we would do is we would pop into a brand new transaction. And there are a couple ways that you can add in that refund tab depending on the type of computer you're using. Now, if you're on a PC, you can type Alt-R on your keyboard. So Alt and then R, and that's going to add in a little refund tab. If you're on a Mac like I am, you can use Option R, and that's going to add the refund. So I'm going to hit Option and R, and that adds in the little blue refund tab for me. Now at this point, I can just search through my inventory to find the items that the customer wants to bring back instead. The only thing to keep in mind with this method is if the customer purchased that item for some sort of a discount or there was anything special going on with it, this is just going to add the item at its current selling price. So it's not going to remember that the customer got 20% off the item 3 weeks ago when they bought it. This is just going to add the item at its current selling price. So that's something to keep in mind. But from here, you would just go through and add the items. You can add that customer to your database going forward if you want to, and then you would pop into the payment tab and record how that customer is going to get their money back. I'm going to pop back into the sale tab though, and I'm going to use that little ticket number that I have saved. So once we have our information pulled up, we would go ahead and just hit the refund button beside each item the customer has decided they want to bring back. It adds it in directly under our little refund section here. And now if the customer was doing a full refund, we would go ahead and just hit our big green payment button. And then we would record how the customer is going to be getting their money back. If the customer has decided they want to do an exchange though, I'm going to go back to my sale in the bottom right corner. You'll want to make sure that you click into the little sale tab just to the left of the blue refund tab. And this is where you can ring through any items the customer is deciding to purchase instead. So we'd search through our inventory, find whatever it is they want to get. And then again, your total is going to change depending on who owes who money. So at this point, we are going to pop into our big green payment button. We're going to record that the customer is going to get maybe their $11.20 back with cash. We're going to finish out our sale. And then we are all good to go. Nothing more we need to do for this refund. Awesome. So from here, let's talk a little bit about some of those more advanced workflows like our layaways and special orders. Then we'll get into a little bit of inventory management. So we're going to go ahead and start a brand new transaction. If we're wanting to do a layaway or a special order, we must attach customer information to the transaction. If we don't have customer information added to the transaction, Lightspeed's not going to give us the opportunity to do a layaway or a special order because Lightspeed has to know who that's being completed for. So I'm going to add my customer, Emma, we are working with. And I'm just going to go ahead and add a random item to this transaction. Now from here, we have the options of either putting this item on a layaway or putting it on a special order. Now a layaway is typically going to be used if we have that item in stock, but we're just putting it aside for the customer. Maybe they're not 100% sure on it, maybe they forgot their wallet, anything like that, but it just means that we're putting that item aside for the customer. A special order, on the other hand, typically is going to be if we don't have that item in stock and we're ordering it especially for this customer. So in our case, we have two ways that we can add our items to a layaway or to a special order. The buttons on the bottom of this page here are going to be for the entire transaction. We can either move everything to a layaway or everything on the transaction to a special order. Maybe the customer has added, 3, 4 items to this, and only one of them we're doing something special with. If that's the case, we can click on that item description, pop over to the right side here where it says Move To, and we can choose if this item is being moved to either a layaway or a special order. Now, really quick, I actually have a poll I'm going to run, seeing if you're planning on doing layaways or special orders, or if you take any sort of deposits from customers. So I'm going to go ahead and launch that poll now, if you don't mind taking just another quick second to answer for me. Awesome, looks like we are almost all good to go. I'll give that another couple seconds to make sure everyone has had a chance to answer. Beautiful. We are going to go ahead and close that out. So it does look like there are actually quite a few people who this is not included in their workflows at all. So I do apologize if this part isn't super pertinent for you, but we do have some people who are going to be doing special orders and taking deposits. So I'm going to go through the whole special order process from start to finish. Doesn't look like we have anyone that's doing layaways, but I am going to just tell you where the layaways are going to be a little bit different. So we're going to go ahead and move this item to a special order, and we're going to go ahead and save our changes here in the bottom right corner. Now you'll notice that we have been given a little blue special order tab. If this was a layaway, it would be a layaway tab instead. Underneath that is a list of all of the items we are putting on order or we're putting aside for the customer. And if there was anything else the customer was going to actually purchase and take with them at the same time, we would just pop back into our little sale tab and record anything that the customer wants to get as well. Now, over on the right-hand side of the page, I'm sure you've noticed we have two totals. The top total is going to be the total for everything the customer is purchasing and taking with them at the time of the sale. The special order total is going to be the amount the customer is putting aside for a special order, or the layaway total if we had one instead. Now, the way that special orders and layaways work within Lightspeed is that your customers are not forced to pay for any part of it when they do that special order or place the layaway. This is where you get to decide how you want to run things. So from here, we're going to pop into our big green payment button, and you'll notice that our total is $0. Customer isn't purchasing anything else at this time, so there's nothing else they have to pay for. And the special order, we could leave it at the $0 if we wanted to. Maybe we want to take a deposit from the customer though, just to confirm that they are going to actually come back and purchase that item or pick it up. If that's the case, if we want to take any sort of a deposit for our special order or for our layaway, we're going to pop over to the left-hand side of the page here where it says Add Deposit. We would record however much the customer is going to put down. So maybe we'll do just under 50%. We'll say 20 bucks. And we'll hit our green Add button in the bottom right corner. Now from here, you'll notice the customer has to actually pay that deposit amount. We're not able to finish the sale until that amount has been recorded as paid for. So we would go ahead and choose however the customer is going to pay, and we'd finish out our sale. Now on the receipt, this just gives the customer a breakdown of basically everything we just did. So we do have a section for payments that lets the customer know kind of anything they've put down, any deposits they've put down on that item. This lets them know the items that they've put aside on special order or a layaway, if that's what this was. And then this also lets them know what their remaining balance is. So when they come in to pick up that item, what do they still owe us? Now from here, if this was a layaway, all we would do at this point is just wait for the customer to come back in. We would open up the transaction again, and then we're able to complete the layaway, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. But since we're doing a special order, there's an additional step of having to actually order that product for the customer. This is where our purchase orders come into play. So we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about inventory management. So popping into our inventory tab on the left-hand side of the page. On our second line of options, we have two buttons that we can use to actually access our purchase orders. The purchase orders button is going to give us an overview of any purchase orders we have on the go or that we've completed. The new order button is going to pop us directly into a brand new purchase order. So that's what we're going to use for now. It's just a matter of filling out the information. So we have a few different statuses. We're always going to start out in open because this is used when we're building our order and adding items to it. Ordered means we've actually ordered those products from our vendor. Check-in means we've received those products. And then finished means everything has been added to our inventory. There's nothing else we need to do for this purchase order. If you're multi-location, you might have a little location drop down here where you can choose the location this order is for. We can go ahead and add in our vendor. Reference number is going to be left blank. This is where you can add in additional information if you'd like. For example, maybe your vendor sends you an invoice number. You could add that in here. We have the date we're placing the order, the date we're expecting to receive it, and any shipping notes or general notes for some additional context. Saving our changes here up in the top left. This populates with a little bit more information. So on the left-hand side, that's everything we just went ahead and entered in. Moving over to the right, we have some information about our account with this company. If we've entered in this information before, it's going to automatically populate for us. We don't have to worry about entering it in every single time. Underneath that, we have a check-in summary. Now, this just gives us a really quick overview to see if what we ordered versus what we received actually matches up in terms of both the quantity and the monetary value. We have a spot to record our costs. So if there are any shipping fees, anything like that that we want to keep track of, we can enter that in here. And then down at the bottom of the page is where we can actually add in our items. Now, there are two ways that we can add them in. Over on the bottom left, we can just manually search through our inventory for items we want to add to this purchase order. Over on the right-hand side, though, we do also have an option for reorder points and levels. Now, reorder points and levels are discussed in the back-end webinar, but essentially, it's setting up minimums and maximums for your products so you know when you need to order more. If that's something you're utilizing, you can add items or you can build your purchase orders based off of items with those reorder points and levels. For example, if I hit the auto add all button here, this is going to automatically add any products for this vendor that are at or below their reorder points. And based on those two numbers, Lightspeed is going to populate the quantity they think I should be ordering. From here, though, I also have the option of filtering this down by category or by brand if I don't necessarily want to add everything for this vendor. So from here, I'll hit auto add all just so you can see what it looks like. But scrolling down to the bottom of the page, this is kind of what we're looking at. So it gives us a breakdown of the items that we've added, lets us know what their selling price is, if we have a current quantity on hand, if we also have a current quantity on order, if we've ever entered in a vendor ID or identification number for that product, the quantity we should be ordering, our unit cost, and then the total amount that we're going to be spending on that product. From here, I am going to take off quite a few of these because we don't necessarily need all of them. Where our special orders come into play, though, is if we scroll up to the top of the page, we have a tab on the left-hand side that says Special Orders. So we're going to open up this little tab here. This gives us a breakdown of any outstanding special orders we have yet to add to a purchase order. So from here, all we would do is we'd find the special order we're looking for, and we would hit the Add to PO button. From here, it moves it into this top section, just confirming that this item has been put on our special order. And if I go back to my Order tab up on the top left, scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll now notice that for this item, our special order quantity is 1. So of the quantity that we're ordering, one of these is already being spoken for in terms of a special order. Now I'm actually just going to add another item here so we can see what it looks like when we receive everything. Beautiful. Once we built out our special order and we're happy with it, we can scroll up to the top of the page, and we do actually have an email tab on our left submenu here. If we open up this email tab, we can go ahead and email this off to our vendor. Now, something to keep in mind is I have had merchants say that unfortunately, not every vendor will accept these purchase orders in this format. Some of them still prefer that you go through their online portal or call it in, whatever it is. But if your vendor accepts the order in this format, just makes your life a little bit easier, and there's some less steps that you have to deal with. From here, we're going to pop over to our Order tab again, kind of on the top left. And once our order has been sent off, we can change it to our ordered status. Once we're ready to receive our items, or we have received them and we want to add them into our inventory, we can change this to our check-in status, either with our little drop-down menu here and then saving our changes, or at the top of the page, we can use our big green check-in button as well. Now, if we scroll down to the bottom, this is where we're able to actually receive our items. So this screen looks a little bit different. Now, there are a couple ways that we can go through and receive everything. We could go ahead and scan everything through one by one to basically count it up. We can just type in the number of received column here, just type in how many we received. Or we have the option to receive all of our items kind of in the middle of the page there. The only caveat with using this button is this is going to act like everything in your order was 100% perfect. So if there are no mistakes, if everything is good to go, definitely go ahead and utilize that button. But do keep in mind, it's going to act as if there were no mistakes for this order. Now I'm going to modify some of these here so we can see what they look like. Once we've typed in all of our quantities and we're happy with everything, we're going to use the Add Receive to Inventory button over on the right-hand side here, that orangey yellow button. And this is what's going to take our items from the order and actually moves them into our inventory so we can start selling them. Taking a look at all of our different items, you'll notice that they're all kind of different colors. This is based on what we've received. So if everything was 100% perfect, we received what we actually ordered. That's going to turn green and say completed. If maybe we actually received more than we ordered, or we typed in that we received more than we ordered, it's going to be kind of this orangey color and lets you know that there was extra received. If we didn't receive as many as we ordered, we only received some of them, Lightspeed's going to let us know this item was partially received. And then if we didn't receive it at all, it turns gray and it says not received. So it gives you a pretty good indicator as to what's happening with these items. Down at the bottom of the page, this does also link our special order customer that we now have to call because their item has come in. So directly from this screen, if we wanted to give the customer a call, we could go ahead and use the little checkbox that says we've called them. And in the notes section, you could say, maybe I spoke with customer coming July 7th. Whatever it is you want to add, you can add that into the notes section. Now, where I actually wanted to focus on for just a quick second was with this second item here where we received some extras. Let's say I didn't actually receive extras of this product. I just made a bit of an error when I was typing this in. In that case, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to remove those extras from our inventory so it doesn't look like we have more in stock than we do. To do that, we could go ahead and open up this item and just do a manual adjustment, but typically we would suggest using a tool called vendor returns. Now, this tool, it's a great way to be able to kind of leave a paper trail so you know what happened with those items. So what we're going to do really quickly is we're going to pop into our inventory tab here again on the left-hand side of the page. On our second line of options, we have a tab for vendor returns. And we're going to go ahead and say new vendor return in the top right corner. Now, the name of this is definitely a little bit misleading because it's not used just if you're sending stuff back to your vendor. This is where you can basically just remove items from your inventory while leaving that paper trail. So I've went ahead and added in our vendor. Again, if we're multi-location, we can choose the shop this is for, and we're going to go ahead and say create. Now, essentially, looks a little bit different, but essentially, this is just going to be a reverse purchase order. So we have our vendor information at the top of the page. If this is something we are actually sending back to our vendor and we had a reference number, we could add that in. But then we also have a spot where we can add a note. So maybe I'm going to say entered in wrong quantity on PO. Just so that way, if someone else is looking at this, they know why this was created. And then we do have a little cost summary over on the right where we could add in a shipping fee or other costs if we're actually going to send this product back. Underneath that, we would go ahead and just search for the item in our inventory. And once it's been added, it looks very similar to our purchase order. So we have the item name, the purchase order it came from. Then we actually have a list of reasons as to why this item is being removed. That way, again, if someone's looking at this objectively or we're looking at the item history, we know what's going on with this item. So I'm going to go ahead and just say wrong quantity. If we had a vendor ID, that would populate here. This lets us know how many we currently have in stock, how many we're going to be getting rid of, and then what our cost of those items are. Once we've built this out and we're happy with it, we're going to scroll up to the top of the page and we're going to hit our big green send to vendor button. Now, this is not actually going to send anything out to your vendor. This is just the action of taking those items out of your inventory. So we're going to go ahead and hit send. In this case, if we were actually going to send this back to our vendor, we could hit under more actions in the top right. We can hit that button and we would have the option to print out a packing slip. Throw that in the box, send it off to the vendor, and we are good to go. If there's nothing else that we're going to do with this, we're going to go ahead and just say mark is closed. And that means we're all finished. Items have been taken out. There's nothing else we have to do with this order. Let's pop back into our inventory tab on the left-hand side here. We're going to open up the purchase order we're looking at again, just really quickly. 111. Now that we've gone ahead and we've received all of our items and we're happy with everything, we're just going to scroll up to the top of the page and we're going to say finished. There's nothing else we need to do here. From here, we have to deal with that special order. So let's say this customer comes back in and they said, hey, I got a call, my item was ready to go. I'm wanting to pick it up. There's a couple ways that we can find this previous special order. Let's pop into our inventory tab again on the left-hand side of the page. On our second line of options, we do have a tab for special orders. So if we open up this special orders tab, this is going to give us an overview of any outstanding special orders we have. So maybe if the customer just called in and saying they wanted a bit of an update, you can always open up this page, and this is going to tell you the different statuses of those orders. If it has not been ordered, if it's been ordered, if it's been received, if it's ready for pickup, whatever it is, this is where you can see kind of a full list of the statuses of your different special orders. Now from here, what we could do is we could hit the little shopping cart on the left-hand side of the page. This would bring up the previous transaction for us. What I typically find the easiest though is if we just pop into our sales tab on the left-hand side, we'll start a brand new transaction, so brand new sale. And let's just add our customer Emma to the transaction. You'll notice that underneath our customer name, it automatically added in our special order tab for us. If it was a layaway, would have done the same thing. But all we're going to do from here is we're going to hit the complete button to say, great, our special order or our layaway is being complete. The customer is picking up those items. Moves it under the sale tab because it's no longer a special order or a layaway. Moving over to the right-hand side, we're going to pop into our payment. And if the customer put down any sort of a deposit, that amount is automatically applied towards this transaction. So in this case, our customer just owes us a balance of $24.80. We'd record how that customer is going to be paying for that remainder, finish out our sale, and we are good to go. Nothing else we need to do for a special order or for our layaway. Now, very last thing we will touch on today before I let you guys all go is just how to close out your register. So popping into our sales tab again on the left-hand side of the page, on our second line of options, we have a big close register button. So we're going to hit that. This just takes us to a page where we'd go ahead and basically count up all of our cash, make sure everything looks good. So we are going to have a column for start and add. So if we had a float, this lets us know what that amount was, and if we manually added anything to our till throughout the day. Payments is what we've received from customers. Withdraws is if we've taken anything out of our register throughout the day. And then total remaining is what Lightspeed thinks we should still have within our register. Over on the right side where we have our actual closing count, similar to when we opened, we would go ahead and just type in the quantities of all of the bills and coins that we have. Or if we know what the amount is, we can just type it in under the extra field here. If we keep scrolling down, we'd see a list of all of our other payment types here, and you can just do little spot checks if you want to make sure everything still matches up. But down at the very, very bottom, if we're happy with this, we're going to go ahead and use the Submit Counts button. This takes us to a page where we have kind of just all of our counts again on a smaller scale. We have a section for what Lightspeed went through and calculated, what we went through and physically counted, and if there are any discrepancies. So if anything looks a little bit funky, we want to make some changes. We can head down to the bottom here where it says Redo Counts. We can modify our counts, or if we think everything looks okay, we're going to go ahead and just hit Save. Then it takes us to a screen where we can print out our little counts, kind of again, on a smaller scale, if we want to be able to keep track of that. And then that would be it for your end of day. Beautiful. So that, my friends, is going to be it for all of the content we have today. I know that this webinar is a very, very packed one. There's a lot of content that we go through. So typically, in terms of next steps, my team is going to reach out to get you booked in for a one-on-one. You don't have to take it. If you're feeling good with everything, then by all means, you don't have to say yes. But if you are wanting to review anything we went over today or anything that's been kind of discussed in any of the webinars, those one-on-ones can be super, super useful. So I'm going to pop open my slides here. We'll do a little wrap up. And then if anyone has any questions they wanted to go through, please feel free to start popping your questions into the little questions box, and we'll spend some time going over those in just a minute. But as I mentioned, next step is typically to get you booked in for that one-on-one consultation. So my team is going to be reaching out. Then after that, ideally, you're able to launch and go live with Lightspeed. and then we'll focus on any additional onboardings for other products you might have, like e-com, analytics, or loyalty. If you start working away and you find that you need a little bit of assistance, you can always refer to our Help Center and video collection. There's lots and lots of information in there that you can review. But definitely start thinking about your go live date and when you're wanting to actually launch. But my team is going to reach out to get you booked in for that one-on-one. So if there are any questions anyone wants to go through, we'll spend the next couple minutes running through those. So please take a second to pop any questions you have into the little questions box, and then we will kind of wrap up and I will let you guys all go. Awesome. So I did get a question coming through here about how to turn on the service module. Super good question. So I'm going to pop into my account again here. If we're wanting to turn on the service module, we're going to scroll into our settings on the bottom left-hand side of the page. From here, we're going to head back down to the bottom of the page, and we're going to pop into the optional modules tab. Within here, you should see an option for the service tab. So if you're planning on doing work orders, anything like that, you'll likely want to look into turning on this service module. Once you toggle that on, you are going to have to save your changes here and then log out and log back into your Lightspeed account in order for those changes to actually take effect. If you're planning on using Lightspeed Loyalty, you'll likely see a loyalty toggle in here. Don't worry, we'll focus on onboardings for loyalty down the road. And if you wanted to enable the time clock on the desktop version of Lightspeed, you can go ahead and toggle on the time clock as well. Super, super good question. Awesome. Beautiful. A question coming through here about what is the transfers tab for? Really good question. So we're in our inventory section here. Over on our second line of options, we do have a tab for something called transfers. Now, this typically is going to be used if you are like a multi-location account. If you have a couple different stores within your one Lightspeed account, this is where you can transfer inventory from one location to another. So maybe, at the end of every month, you have excess inventory that didn't sell that you send back to another location. This is where you're able to transfer that inventory from one location into another, so you can kind of keep track of where everything is. Super good question, though. And if you don't have a multi-location account, you likely won't see that option popping up. Another one coming through here about, do you have reports to show the hours employees have worked? Yes, we do. So popping over to our reports tab on the left-hand side of the page, if we scroll down, we're going to go down to the bottom right, and we have an employees section. So in here, this is where we can see not only the total hours our employees have worked for the time period we choose, we can also see all of their individual clock entries. So if I'm an employee, I work for you, and maybe when I first started this morning, I clocked in a little bit late, you could pop into the clock entries tab and you could modify my clock in and out entries to make sure everything is accurate and it's the way it should be. So definitely a couple of reports that you can take a look at. Really good question. Beautiful. Looks like that's going to be it for all of the questions that have come through. So I know I sound like a little bit of a broken record here, but remember, my team is going to reach out to get you booked in for the one-on-one session. You are going to get a copy of today's webinar recording. So when we're all finished, you'll be able to review it or pass it along to anyone else who wasn't able to attend who might find this helpful. You also have the option of contacting our support team. So if you're doing some work in your account and something pops up, please feel free to contact them and they will be able to give you a hand. But thank you so much for joining me today, everybody. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and hopefully I get to work with some of you in the future. Bye, everyone.